Hi, I'm Paul.
Hi, I'm Annie.
And welcome to Skip the Rulebook, the show that banishes the shadows of the rulebook, brightening up your new game.
Today, we'll be shining the spotlight on Glux. In this game, you need to strategically place your light tokens to control areas whilst blocking the paths of your opponents.
The question is, will you shine or simply black out? Let's skip the rulebook. Not going to need this. Inside the box, the first thing you'll find is a double-sided game board. Although Glux is a 2 to 4 player game, the 2-player variant requires a slightly different layout in order to keep it balanced.
There are 4 sets of coloured light chips and matching coloured markers that players use to mark their territory and their score.
The bags allow you to sufficiently randomise your tokens by drawing them without seeing.
The game board is double-sided, with the correct side being determined by the number of players. In a game of 3 to 4 players, use the side with the larger grid and place it upwards in the centre of the play area. In a game with 2 players, such as we'll be playing, use the smaller grid.
Each player should choose a colour and take their light chips, placing them inside one of the cloth bags. Players should also then take the matching starting marker and scoring marker. Place your scoring marker next to the number 1 on the scoring track.
In our 2-player game, we start in diagonally opposite squares, so we place our start markers here. We then randomly draw a chip from our bag, and these chips are double-sided, so you need to decide which side to place upwards on our start marker. In 3 to 4 player games, refer to page 2 of the rulebook for the starting positions.
Lastly, each player should draw a second token from their bag, but keep it hidden in their hands so that the other players can't see it. Randomly decide who will go first. In our game, I randomly decide that I will go first. Glux is a game all about the strategic placement of your light chips. The lighter coloured squares on the board are referred to as rooms, with the dark blue referred to as paths. The aim of the game is to place your light chips inside the rooms so that you have the most light in each one. At the end of the game, each room is scored and points awarded to the player who has the highest total number of pips visible in each room. During your turn, you simply place your new light chip on the board. Where you can place your chip is determined by the chips already on the board. Count a number of squares equal to the number of pips visible on your starting token, horizontally or vertically. You can place your new chip on the last square reached. This is known as your destination square. So I could place my chip here or here. You can place your new chip whichever way up you would like. So I'm going to place my new one here with the 4 facing up. I then reach into the bag and take another chip, keeping it hidden as before, and start planning my next move while play passes to the next player clockwise.
Now it's my turn. Remember, you can count from any of your existing chips on the board, either horizontally or vertically, but not diagonally. Never diagonally. So I can go either here or here, and I'm going to go here, and I collect another chip from my bag in readiness for my next turn.
Now that I've 2 chips on the board already, I can choose which one I want to count from to place my next chip. I'm going to choose to count 4 from this one and place my next chip here.
I'm not keen on letting Paul have control of the centre room, so I'm going to place a token in there, counting 4 squares from this chip and placing a token here.
I was going to use this chip to make my way down the board in this direction. Unfortunately, Annie's placed her chip here and blocked my way. If any player, including yourself, places a chip that blocks you and your destination square, that way is blocked and you can't place a chip in that direction. So I'm instead going to count from my starting token and place my chip here.
Now it's time to enact my master plan. If the destination square only has a single chip on it, even if it's one of your own, you can place another chip on top. Only that top chip will count for the rest of the game, and no other players can place a chip on top of it. So I can count 1 from this one and place my chip on top of Paul's.
That was pretty mean. As Annie said, I can no longer put further chips on top of hers as there are already 2 on that square. You can potentially choose to place chips on top of your own. This may be to prevent somebody else from doing the same, or simply to change the value. So I'm going to place my next chip here. Play continues in this way until the game ends. This occurs when either no player can draw any further chips from their bag, or no player can place any further chips on the board. The final scores are then added up.
Scoring is done by evaluating each room separately. In each room, players should count the total number of their pips showing in that room. The player with the most number of pips in that room gets 4 victory points, and the player with the second most gets 2 victory points. If more than one player are tied for first position, they both get 4 victory points, but no other points are awarded for that room. If more than one player are tied for second position, all concerned players get 2 victory points.
In a game with 2 players, victory points are only awarded to the player with the most pips in each room. Once all rooms have been evaluated, the player with the most victory points wins. In the case of a tie, it's the player with the most pips in the centre room that is the winner. If it's still a tie, then you're obviously just all too awesome, so you should share the victory. It's worth bearing in mind that players can never place a chip on top of another player's start marker. However, once per game, a player can place a chip on top of their own start marker if they wish, which would cover their starting chip.
Players are required to do this if they're unable to place their chip elsewhere on the board according to the usual rules of play. If this option has already been used and the player can't legally place their chip elsewhere on the board, the player is out of the game until the final scoring.
That's it from us at Skip the Rulebook. If you enjoyed this video, please press like. If you want to hear more from Skip the Rulebook, press subscribe. You can also find out more about us on Facebook, Twitter and skiptherulebook.com.
Join us next time for your chance to jump into that new board game of yours without having to do any of the tedious rule reading.
See you later.